Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to what we call Full Course Yellow. If you're joining us straight from Channel 31 and the In Pit Lane YouTube channel for this week's edition of In Pit Lane from the Sandown Historics, welcome to the program. This is something that we do every week at the end of the program. We sort of just get together, a few mates get together, and we talk about motorsport as they do. When one or more are gathered together, they shall talk all things motorsport. Joining us once again, we've got most of the regular crew with us this week, apart from Richard Outram, who is up at Bathurst. Lucky bugger, he's up there at Mount Panorama running the XL, and I haven't heard from him yet, so hopefully it's all gone well up there. But we've got Stuart, we've got Chris, we've got Dave Stillwell, we've got Pete Johnson, and also in the corner we've got Craig Doc Ladigo. Good evening, everybody. And first, before we start the program, the main thing, if you watched In Pit Lane just a few moments ago, you would have seen at the end of the program that very scary crash involving Andy Clemson in the historic touring cars on the weekend at Sandown. First of all, thanks to our mate Roy Virtual R, who's on regular contributor on this program. He was the one who actually got that footage. I was standing pretty much right next to him, but I wasn't actually filming at the time, as is typical. But he was filming, but then had to literally jump away for his, as they say, discretion, the better part of valour. He got out of the way pretty quickly. But Andy is, under the circumstances, he's lucky to be around, basically. I mean, this is once again a testimony to the great safety of the cars. The Hans device, he went in, as you can see, he went in flat chat, undiminished. He has some broken ribs, punctured lung, a shoulder injury, but really under the circumstances, he's going to be a very, very sore boy for a very, very long time. Nothing worse than broken ribs, because there's really not much you can do about them, but
painful, yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a few of them, but under the circumstances, yeah, I mean, it was very worrying there a while. But once again, congratulations to all the crew out there, because I was standing sort of, right beside the car, and you could hear everything that was going on, and the communication between all of the officials, all the medical people, and Andy in the car, and they just did a fabulous job. So once again, to the guys and girls from the medical people and the flaggies and everybody concerned there, the sector marshals, well done, guys, fabulous job. And of course, we wish Andy all the very best, and very sad to see that lovely Mustang in such a bad way, but it appears that it was a brake failure. It was fairly obvious if you had a look at the footage on the show. It was pretty obvious that it was a brake failure, brake bias problem. Looks like fatigue had set in according to the initial report, and basically he's every racing driver's nightmare. You go to hit the pedal that goes whoa, and it doesn't go whoa, and he didn't go whoa was all, But anyway, yes, Virtual R is with us tonight. Yeah, great to see some track footage again, very much so. Okay, there we've got some footage. I think Stuart's showing some there. Here we are. So Stuart's got the footage coming up now.
Absolutely
Yeah,
no retardation whatsoever.
None at all. And there's Roy. There's Virtual R getting out of the road. So as I said, I was standing just to the. If you hear the full, apart from the sound of Roy and others, using some great Australian adjectives, we can get rid of that now and go back to our regular view.
Grand sale.
But
Mustang parts.
Yeah, just a little pre-show business there, Brett. Somebody did mention being on a new Bluetooth headset. I'm just wondering, we've seen latency from Bluetooth devices, and it takes time for things to happen. What was the response time of the officials to this incident at Sandown?
Oh,
was it delayed, like Bluetooth, or
no, they were very quick on this. There was sector marshal there in the corner. He was there straight away, and basically the moment they threw the red flag, and the moment it was safe for officials on the flaggies on the inside of Dandenong Road to get across the track, they were there, and the medical was there within
Sandown,
sort of less than 2 minutes.
At Sandown, I am 100% not surprised. You may remember when we had Rob Burns in his Charger catch fire at the same corner. And I know I had to get out of the way as a camera person for the marshals charging past, carrying all that gear. Let's face it, when it comes to Sandown and Phillip Island and Winton, the marshals do a bloody amazing job every time.
That was a great John Laws rendition there with that gold microphone there as well, too, the way. The delivery. You do it in a funny way.
But anyway, it was fantastic to get back to the track on the weekend. And if you saw, we did a couple of live streams on the Friday and on the Saturday. And thank you to the response from both of those. That was exclusively on the Facebook page. Tried a couple of things. It worked. Yes, it worked okay. There's some tweaks that we're going to make, and we'll work on that. And we'd like the opportunity to do some more. So if you've got any meetings coming up and you'd like us to come along and do any live streaming for you, let us know about it, and we'll see what we can arrange. Because we're playing all this stuff. The technology is changing on a daily basis. The problem is the technology costs money and we don't have money. But I think that under the circumstances, I think that we did reasonably well to get the footage out. There were a few sound problems and a bit of breaking up with the picture.
We have found lots and lots of wrinkles in lots and lots of new toys, and there's some very happy programmers getting feedback and seeing us at the cutting edge.
They're getting the big
I believe Dave was actually going to add something in there, but with the talking and the latency of the Bluetooth headsets, he kind of missed his chance. Should we open the door and let him in?
Let's open ladies and gentlemen, Dave Stillwell.
Good evening, folks. So at Sandown, I get the whole screen to myself. That was our friends
showing off
from
your
the
new wares
Fire
and
and
your
Rescue
ears.
Squad. Yeah, the new bone conduction headphones. Great for cycling and orienteering with. Even good in the rain as well. Those are our friends from Team Medical Australia and the Victorian Fire and Rescue Squad, alongside Pyark Recovery. This was their first chance. In the same way, it was the first chance back at the track for a lot of the competitors in over 6 months for most motorsport events in Victoria. The same was true for a lot of the officials. So, it was discussed at Friday officials briefing, ease into it, understand, that you're going to have to remember how to do the thing you like doing. But it just goes to show that, properly maintained equipment, properly trained and motivated teams that are meshed together, that are used to working alongside one another on the same communication channels, are able to deliver a very high standard of response to both small incidents and massive incidents when they unfortunately occur at this level of motorsport. I was one of the Motorsport Australia volunteer officials at the event. I was privileged to see the event unfold from race control and to sit back and to listen to the way in which that was managed. It really reinforces, just how, devoted, professional, and, just how much respect our volunteer officials have for the sport and the people who put themselves in harm's way to enjoy themselves behind the wheel. So I just want to say on a personal note to everyone who's involved in that, hugely appreciate your efforts. Without you, there is no motorsport. If I take my official hat off and put my competitor hat on, we can't go and do the thing we want to do unless vast numbers of people volunteer their time on a weekend without being paid, except for, a nice lunch and maybe a hot dog or a sausage and bread at the end of the day. I have the utmost respect for the officials, and that's why I really enjoy being one, often more than being a competitor. So,
yeah, I mean, they're very much the hard. They're very much the hardcore. There we got Patrick was there. He was a flaggy at the weekend. Great to be back at the racetrack. And like you say, Dave, it was even the same with us. I mean, we got set up, and what had happened is that it was been so long since we'd used a couple of the cameras that they'd all basically reverted to their factory settings. So I turned everything on, and everything was everything was not working the way it should. All the dates were out, and all of the settings were gone. And
I was about to say it was chaos. The date on all of the video would have probably said 1970, which would have been about correct for most of the cars that were out there.
Well, actually, it was January the 4th, 2002 was popped up on the thing. And it was interesting because the first place that I ever used that main camera was, we took it to Le Mans, and it came back basically on those original settings. So it came back for that particular year, and it said that the location was Paris. So it wasn't.
Well, for a lot of people, this will be the longest they've actually been out of the seat or out of the flag point. Because if you consider, the sort of 2 or 3 month gap between Island Magic at the end of the year and the first Victorian State round in February, it's only about a 2.5 month break. Well, this year we had a 4, 5, 6 month break between the equivalent level event being the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship back in May, and then since then, the next biggest profile meeting we had in Victoria was the VHRR Historics. So,
not just that, also that a lot of flag marshals do a lot of independent stuff, not necessarily sanctioned events, and they'll do things in between. So, they may do a major like an Island Magic and Sandown Historics, as you said, for the period that we're in at the moment, but they might do a Motor Carnival for a local club down the road as an in-between sometimes. So it's ongoing throughout the year. So.
Well, as I said, it was very, very good to be back. Everybody was delighted to be back again. It was an interesting weekend, weather-wise as well. We had the most torrential rain, and getting out of the place on Saturday was an interesting exercise for a lot of people.
We're getting at 12 o'clock again tonight. They reckon we're going to get a massive storm overnight going through tomorrow, so huge one apparently, which will rival last weekend. So
lovely. That's not what we need.
On Saturday afternoon,
I can't afford to go and take more photos and slip over again.
No.
I had to tow an official's car out of the overflowing water on the causeway just outside the paddock gate at the end of Saturday.
That wasn't the Mercedes, was it?
So far up.
That wasn't the black Mercedes.
No.
No, I saw. When I turned left. When I turned left instead of right, I looked to the right, and it was a black Mercedes almost up to the door handles in water, and that would have been a write-off.
This was
Doesn't
a
Lewis
black
Hamilton
Skoda.
drive one of those?
Lulu.
But fortunately, we were able to get the car recovered to higher ground. Had it inspected at a workshop during the week, and once we removed all the debris, the twigs and sticks and leaves and even snails on the transmission tunnel heat shields, they were able to safely start and drive the car and make sure that nothing was waterlogged or damaged. So, yes, I did. But it seemed rather odd. It was a Skoda, so it was a car from the Czech Republic as opposed to a Peugeot or a Renault, which would have been more fitting for an escargot.
Yes.
Well, I'm not taking credit for this, but we had to save 2 of the in-pit lane cars from the car park at one stage. It was only mag wheel deep, not quite up to the bearings, but it was a significant amount. I went home with wet shoes and socks that I had to dispose of before my front door. So
yes, Doc decided to wade in and get his car, and then said, "Well, no point both of us getting wet." So he came in and got my car out as well. So thank you, Doc.
Andy.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have been going anywhere. I was just sitting there going, "I'm not wading back through that." But it was chaos getting home. We had to go like a really long way home and back out the freeway, and it was floods everywhere.
Worth it in the circumstances because it was safer. But the drainage is workable and efficient at Sandown in the car park there, but it was unable to cope with the deluge that we had. It would have been 25 to 35 mil, I think, in that precinct we were at. I think Cardinia and Casey was one of the biggest dumping grounds for water. that afternoon, which was quite a spectacle when we're all underneath the pits, and there was Stilly, myself, and Brett, and a few other a vast amount of volunteers and a few drivers.
And Mike Roddy was still out on the track.
Yeah, munching on our hamburgers and looking across the racecourse, going, "Look at the debris floating across the middle of the now formed."
There were trees going down the lake. I mean, I've never seen the lake so flooded.
None of us
trees going down. They're saying, for God's sake, red flag this thing, and they went, "Oh, the drivers won't say it." Mike was going. I spoke to Mike the next day, and he said, "I wasn't coming in. I'd have been out there." And he said, "It's been so long since I've been behind the wheel." And as he said, "Hey, listen," he said, "this thing raced at Spa. This thing, this is built for weather like that, you know."
Well, I had Roger FIA next to me, and he wasn't clerk of the course today, and he says, "I think it's time I made a phone call and I put my 5 cents into this. I'm red flagging this." So he was making a phone call. He stepped away a few steps and he was having a chat. And so we're all having a good laugh and munching away on our food intake. If what we should have done is actually had a 180-degree look on the back of the pits instead of looking out on the track and seeing our cars that are about to be flooded. So, fortunately, it didn't get that high up. But
well, I think it hit so quickly. I think Roger Churnside was saying that, what he was obviously worried about is it wasn't so much the rain, it was the lightning. And the fact is, they were still out on the track. Yep. And they were. He wanted his guys in. So he said, we can't leave people out there. So and everyone just assumed, and it happened with most of the cars for that last thing. They went out. A couple of them did 1 lap and came in. A couple of them did 2 laps and came in. Mike was out there on slicks, I believe, just going round and round and round. You couldn't see 2 feet in front of you, but every now and again, this green and white Jag would come round the corner and fly past.
And the yellow XA kept on lapping as well too.
The John Goss replica car. Yeah,
the XA kept on lapping until the end, until he got checkered flag and told to get his button, and he still completed his warm down lap out of it. But Roger, funny you mentioned that, Roger was on the phone, and he was a couple of steps away. He ventured towards me a few seconds. How many strikes of lighting have you seen? As he's on the phone to somebody, and I said 3, and he's gone, "Thank you," and then he's gone back on and go, "We've seen lightning, blah blah blah." So he's it wasn't dangerous, but it was getting a bit ridiculous for the situation for the cars to be out on track. It was just, there's no need to be.
It is Roger, so Roger's got to be really careful. He can't get the hat wet, because if it shrinks anymore, he'll never be able to take it off his head again.
Yes, exactly, and he'll never be able to say he's been fishing in it, because it won't be.
Don't touch the hat.
You don't touch the hat. You don't mess with the hat. I mean, I remember. I have great memories of the hat at Le Mans. I mean, that was the famous Le Mans, because he had no idea that I was there. And as I went down towards just the corner heading on to the Mulsanne, and as I'm looking around, I see this very familiar hat walking, coming up towards there, and I was up at the top of the thing, and I just said, "Bonjour, Monsieur Marshal," and he went, "What the expletive delete?"
And this little hat that we're talking about, if you want a visual, just imagining an old fishing type hat for the old people, not terry toweling, just your old material style. There is no room for another badge on it. He's got that many badges on it.
I'm just trying to remember. Did Roger take it with him when he received the FIA Marshal of the Year award? Did he wear that to the awards show?
I don't think he did from the photos I saw. But he should have. I mean, let's face it. When and if Roger ever retires, I mean, that hat, if nothing else, that hat has to go into the Motorsport Hall of Fame.
I'm sure the folks at Motorsport Australia will be able to find a pride of place for it on their wall of champions. Next to the Davisons and the Joneses and the Webbers and the Brabhams. There'll be the Roger Churnside hat. They'll probably have to, hat. Yes, they'll probably have to.
That would be a good way to
loud inside.
That would be a good way to say something nice about all the volunteers that turn up and actually have a stand for the marshals and show their contribution to the sport.
No,
You can have a couple of $100,000 race car out in the track that looks like the original, but you cannot replicate that hat.
No.
Actually, there's the Speed Cafe. If you go to Speed Cafe, you can see where Roger did win that award a few years ago, and very well deserved too. He's done a lot at Le Mans. He's done Chesley Walsh, the hill climb. He's done a number of things. I knew he was over there because when we went over there, we had Gary Grant, who was at CAMS at the time, said, like, if you're going over there, there's an Australian marshal over there. If you know Roger Tindall, of course we knew Roger, and when he saw me standing up there, sort of filming him it was the last thing he expected to see, but and now it's sort of the running joke that whenever we see each other, we always greet each other and have a quick chat in French, or at least a little bit of French that I know. I think Roger's a bit more fluent with it than I am, and I believe his wife is really quite fluent, which helps a lot. But yes, merci Roger, merci. So okay, let's talk about. We've talked about Sandown. It was so good to be back, and it was so much fun. Let's talk about. There was also racing happening on the weekend in Mexico City, and was that the most boring Formula One race ever?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I don't know.
Not ever. It wasn't one for the ages.
Pete, what do you think?
It was, but Daniel Ricciardo, even though he was running second last for a lot of it, I think he's got on top of the braking issues he had, and he was having a good dice with Valtteri and kept keeping him at bay. And I wonder how long it's going to be before Haas decides that Nikita Mazepin's money is not worth the trouble.
Yeah, well, he's also been. There's rumours going around that young Nikita found himself in a bit more trouble outside the car during the week too. Apparently, there's rumours he was asked to leave a nightclub for being a bit of a naughty boy.
Shocked.
Yeah, so there you go. But I think it is the frustration.
My
that the team
international, definitely shocked face.
Definitely shocked face.
Was
Yes.
Novak
I thought that
Djokovic,
was the Halloween mask for like the.
was
zombie
Novak
outbreak.
Djokovic involved as well too, with his shirt off at the nightclub?
I don't think there was any appearance by Novak, but but Mazepin is the team is obviously the problem the team have got is the team obviously don't they would love to have another driver, but they need the Mazepin money, and that's the thing that there. But it was a good result for Red Bull, of course. Not a good result for Lewis Hamilton, and even though sort of Lewis is very much still in contention for the title, it's looking increasingly likely that if Max does the right thing now and he doesn't have too many problems between now and the end of the year, you'd think that he would hold on to win the championship. But you certainly can't rule Hamilton out, and I think the Mercedes will be in a much better position at Brazil. The problem they've got at Brazil is that many of the teams are missing bits of their cars because there was a logistical problem, a shipping problem between Mexico City and Brazil, and various truckloads and shipping containers full of equipment has apparently either failed to arrive or at least has arrived very late in the piece. So
Is it showing up at Albert Park?
yeah, they probably, yes.
We just arrived on the black market.
That's
Adelaide,
that's a lot of ifs.
under the stands at Adelaide 500, they're sitting there for a grand sale.
I just say that's a lot of ifs for Verstappen. It was pointed out, I think, on Midweek Motorsport this week that he's got to have a 25-point gap when he leaves Sao Paulo, and then he can do the 3 races in the Middle East and finish second every time. Well, and Lewis can win them, all 3 of them, and get the fastest lap, and he still can't be beaten. I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's a lot of ifs. That's presuming no mechanical failures, no someone having a brain fart at the first corner and punting him off and having him score a donut. You know, it's a lot of ifs. You know, it's one of the things that's made this year's championship so exciting is that it has remained so close the whole way through. And every time someone looked like they were going to streak away to an advantage, you know, they get their legs chopped out from under them, you know, or they bash into each other at the first chicane at Monza, you know, or they bash into each other at, you know, Silverstone. You know,
The interesting
it's
thing.
not. It won't be over until the Sunday night in Abu Dhabi.
Probably not, but it would be nice to. I think that Mercedes would be looking at the thing that would be frustrating them at the moment. Yet again, is the performance of Valtteri Bottas. You know, I mean, he did all the right things. He started from pole position, but he made a bad start. Then he got tangled up with Dan Ricciardo. I mean, that wasn't his fault. That was more Dan's fault, and Dan has sort of apologised for it. But you know, he's shown in the past that if he drops back into the field, he really is not very good at getting past in traffic, and they really needed him up there. And as we've seen at the bottom of the ticker, down the bottom there, Sergio Perez is saying, since the break, he said, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable in that car and a lot more comfortable in the team than I was in the first half of the year. And he's focused now. He knows what his job is, and his job is to help Max win the championship and to make sure that Red Bull win the Constructors' Championship. So he's got a purpose now, and he's a very smart driver. I think Checo. I think he's very smart. He's got a touch of the Alonso's about him.
Always has been. Always had respect.
There's also a question mark over the Mercedes engine, which the factor in.
What's wrong with the engine? What's wrong with the power plant?
They say they're down on pace, and they say over the last few races there's something that they can't identify. It's making funny noises, and also Lewis is yet to take an engine, which they were tipping he would do in Mexico. So he's yet to take another engine.
Yeah, I think that it would be interesting. I mean, the fact that he hasn't taken an engine, I mean, would they actually, at this late stage, I mean, do you think they'd have to take an engine at some stage? But, you know,
how many rounds are left?
Well, there's only, 4, isn't there?
4, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, if they're going to take it, I imagine this weekend would probably be a good place to take it.
Yeah. Well, will he have to take penalties for it? I suppose we've got to take that into consideration as well, though, too. If they do upgrades with it, sometimes they can take a 5-spot grid penalty with the power plant and the upgrades they make to it as well, too. So,
the more upgrades they make, the more the penalty.
So maybe, as you said, they're nothing out those problems, or trying to smooth out, getting the big iron out, like we were saying before, and trying to smooth out some creases.
Also, as we've seen at the bottom, I mean, in preparation for 2022, the rumours are going around. Well, no, not rumours. I mean, Alfa Romeo have said that they will be announcing who will be alongside of Valtteri Bottas in their team next year, and it's pretty much looking like Antonio Giovinazzi won't get that gig now. It was looking like they sort of almost confirmed that he had it a while ago, but apparently he's fallen out of favour big time with the team, and obviously, Guan Yu Zhao, as the Chinese driver, is very much in the mix because of the money he's there. But the team bosses have said that Oscar Piastri is very definitely being looked at, and they've said that the fact that they're both Alpine development drivers is not a problem at their end. That they will be having a talk with Alpine, and they would expect that if either of those drivers was chosen, they would expect Alpine would not stand in the way of either of them if they got the move, if they got the offer to come into the team. What do you think, Pete? Do you think that do you think that all that money, that Chinese money, would be seeing that it is like a factory team? I mean, would they be that desperate for the money, and I mean, and Zhao is obviously a really good driver, but Piastri seems to be something special.
Yeah, given that it's a factory team, I don't think they'd be that desperate for the money, but So
They might be desperate for the marketing. I mean, it would be
Yeah.
very good to have a Chinese driver, to push their product in that market.
Yeah, and there's talk that the Chinese Grand Prix will return in 2023. So
Yeah. Well, you would imagine that if they the crowd would come back. So Andrew's saying, can the Australian Grand Prix beat the 400,000 people? I would doubt it. I would very much.
Well,
Very
the
much
other reason
doubt it.
That
they
would
can't-
depend
they-
on if 400,000 people are allowed to attend.
That's what I'm saying. So they've announced in the
true.
last 48 hours that it's
100,000
going to be a
a
soft cap of 100,000 per day. So they can't.
Well, that's 4 days, 400,000.
which they have struggled to get close to, even
Yeah.
with the, shall we say, liberal accounting methods used by the AGPC for counting persons attending the circuit.
And most
Count
of
their
it,
legs and divide by 2, don't you?
in the history in the last 2 decades,
how
when it
does that work out with me, Chris?
and had so I remember in all the years that we've had it in Victoria in Albert Park, they've had 2 free Thursdays, because I think I went to one of them one year. I can't remember which one. They've had 2 free Thursdays. We were discussing this a year or two, I think, ago, Brett. And on those 2 free Thursdays, I think one of the years it was because they obviously still do a counter on the amount of people that are entered into the premises of the precinct, I should say. I think it was around 70,000 on the Thursday, and that was with the freebie. So you've got to take into consideration it's still a business day, still a working week. People have taken the day off. So if they get 100,000 on the Saturday to Sunday, and they can still get a bumper one on the Friday, they won't be able to hit that 100,000 on the Thursday, even if they open slather anyway. So, but look, 100,000 per day, I think that's if you're going to get crowds, that'd be fantastic, because it's going to be basically no limits. I mean, it's going to be a free for all. The only thing that the only requirement will be is you'll have to show your certificate that you'll be double vaxxed to gain entry to the precinct, and you'll be fine.
As Box is saying, Albert Park Grand Prix tickets go on sale next week for Grand Prix Advantage members. Public tickets go on sale 2nd of December. I was going to ask you, Pete. Is that when that was announced? Somebody on Facebook today said that I really hope they do something about the poor conditions for disabled customers there, and give them a few more choice. I mean, you go every single year. I mean, from your point of view, what's the situation there? Have you got much choice in where you can actually, in places you can actually watch the thing?
There's about 3 grandstands where that are accessible, and most of the general admission is in fact, I think all of it is wheelchair accessible. But the problem with that is you've got to be there sort of at 7 o'clock in the morning to get a good seat, and that's an issue for a lot of people with disabilities. So, but it's generally pretty good. That they've moved one of in 2020, because when I went on the Thursday, they'd moved one of the stands back a bit, so it was a lot easier to get around, because it wasn't on the grass. It was on a basketball court and closer to the driveway, where the cars go under the tunnel. But I find it pretty good. I mean, only the grass is a bit hard, but I find it pretty good. I can get around all right by myself. The only thing I can't really do is I need assistance to get food and stuff, because a lot of it's on tan-bark and stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, because we've caught up on occasions, and you've been able to get a drink and all the rest there. But I mean, that's it. It was somebody today on the Facebook page just said that they weren't particularly happy. I think it was a young woman who said, "Look, I go every year, and I'm not really happy about the lack of choices we've got, and some of the places are a bit hard for us to get a good view." So I thought I'd ask you about that. But
if you're going for a grandstand, you are limited because there's only about 2 or 3 grandstands that are accessible.
Just as important, Australian Open tickets are also on sale next week as well too.
oh, there you go. Well, that has
but of course
very good
Yeah,
disabled.
how's their accessibility?
Excellent, very
Yes,
good.
I guess from an accessibility point of view, it depends. Because at the moment, we still don't know whether we're going to see Novak Djokovic come into the country or not.
Yes.
That'd be no great loss. But he has an incentive to take his shirt off in some medical way, shape or form, because at the moment, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, they're all tied on 20 Grand Slams around the world. And he wants to be the number 21st person to win one and be possibly regarded as the greatest of all time. But I don't think he actually can feel the realm of the world. Just because you've won 21 doesn't mean that the world will regard you as the greatest of all time, because there are many facets and personalities and parts of your life and what you contribute in the world other than just winning a Grand Slam. And I think Roger Federer trumps him on about just a few dozen extra parts of life.
Roger Federer is going to get a sainthood. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Roger Federer is one of those people that, I mean, he's just such a lovely human being. I mean, so it doesn't really matter what happens. He ticks all the boxes.
He does.
Question: which teams do these people drive for?
Roger Federer, he drives for Switzerland. Novak Djokovic drives for Serbia, and Rafa drives for a Spanish team.
Say it.
Uber.
Speaking of the vaccination, Dave Reynolds is still out of contention for running at Sydney Motorsport Park over the next few weeks, and there is some doubt now about whether he's going to be able to race at Bathurst. He will have the team are now saying that he will definitely have had his second injection by the time Bathurst rolls around. But the question is, it's sort of how long do you have to wait technically after you've had? Because I mean, I know that it's sort of, they say in terms of your protection, it's 7 to 14 days after the injection that it actually kicks in. But they're getting ready just in case, and they're saying that Chris Vanderdrift, who is a name I hadn't heard of for quite some time, the New Zealand driver, very good New Zealand driver. If it rains, boy, there's a team that you could watch out for, because I remember he's a bit like Jim Richards. He is very much the rainmeister, but then he's got to get into Australia as well, or he can get in, but once again, like all the Kiwis, he won't be able to get back again. So, I mean, whether that's
putting
I think it's
Murphy in doubt as well. And
Stanaway and Murphy have been in doubt for weeks on whether they make it. And it's just everyone's getting traction on an article every day and just writing the same BS. But when it comes to Reynolds, if he's had his second vaccination, look at everyone in their own workplaces. The most anyone has in their own thing. If you've had your jab, if you've been for your second vaccination at an appointment, you're at work that day, or you've had it during the day and you're at work next day. The only thing, people might feel ill for a day or two, etc., like that. They've had to take their own sick leave. If he's had his second vaccination, he will race, as long as it's not maybe on the practice on Friday or something. So I think that's a storm in a teacup.
Speaking of the Supercars, they did race, and it certainly rained in Sydney as well. It's been raining right up and down the east coast of Australia, and rained in Sydney under lights. I mean, it looked spectacular. I mean, how does everyone think that it went?
Oh, Chaz Mostert was great.
Yeah. And I like the.
What do you think?
I like the use of the hard and the soft tyre. They all had to use both combinations in each race. So I like that, but it was.
Yeah, that adds something to it. I think that they should. I think they should make sure they do that, and I think there should be more of a difference between the soft and the hard compounds too. I mean, make it more like Formula One. Make it, give the teams a bit more option and strategy. If you're going to make it a team thing, if you're going to factor in pit stops, once again, poor Will Brown. I mean, in the Erebus team, I mean, he got pole.
Can't catch a break.
Can't get a wheel nut.
Can't get a wheel nut back on. Very, very disappointing. But it just, once again shows what a considerable talent. We knew that he was. We knew how talented he was. I mean, from the way he performed in TCR and has done a great job there. And now it hasn't taken him long to get up the front, and we're seeing it now. I mean, the next generation is definitely coming through with Will and Anton Di Pasquale and a lot of those young guys coming through and getting ready to take over the mantle from the older guys. Although one guy who's not the youngest but did very well as well was Will Davison. It was good to see Will back in action and being up there at the front and taking on everybody.
And,
but Van Gisbergen is still once again the man to beat.
Well, Will Davison doing a great job, even though he's not the good car from DJR according to SVG. Wasn't that a spicy press conference on the Saturday?
I saw the after wrap up from the previous week when Garth Tander was having a chat with SVG and separately, and then they got Davo as well though too. This is the wrap up afterwards, the bit of running around having a laugh and giggle. And when they grabbed Will said, "Will, next weekend we're going to grab all the settings, basically almost to the spec of what Anton's car is, start them on mine, and then I'll tweak them from there. So to my suitability." So that's what he started off, and maybe that helped him be a little bit more competitive as a basic setup. Also, just quickly, going back, as you mentioned, back at the start of the Supercars conversation for SMP. A quick fact that came out of it, which was imperative right from the start, which all the teams know, but we don't know as a viewer, the tyre deg or degradation, deg for short, was between the two tyres, the hard and the soft that you just mentioned before, was about half. So if you've got a hard tyre on and if you've got a soft tyre on, you get 5 laps at premium optimum use. You're going to get about 10 laps of a hard tyre, so if it's a 32-lap race, you're going to get, that's why most of them were swapping between 8 and 12 laps on the soft tyre and then using the hard tyre for the remainder of the race. And I'll throw this one out to the crew. How would you like to be not the wheel nut, but the back left tyre changer on SVG? Oh, sorry, back left. Back left tyre changer on
back rear right.
Oh, yeah, rear right.
Rear right, and hanging on for your dear life.
He made sure that wheel nut was done up, though.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, he certainly put in certainly above and beyond the call of duty. I mean, it was potentially very dangerous for that sort of thing to happen. But that's the thing that we've seen in once you introduce pit stops. I mean, there is an element of danger. That's why I don't go into pit lane during when Sandown 500 was on and all that. I had the media pass and I back in the day, and I could certainly go in there, and I would sometimes wander in, and I'd wander into the garages, but I never ever went into pit lanes. A lot of journalists would be in pit lane. It's like, nah, you keep out of that. That's a really intense workplace in there, and you don't
easy place to get run over, Brett.
Very, very easy place to get run over or catch fire. Or all that, but it's an intense place in pit lane, and good name for a television show. Anyway,
and just like in real life, the wheels fall off here as well.
I'll do that. Well, they've at least got wheel. I mean,
there's a lot of loose nuts going around.
Hopefully, none up at Richard Outram's pits up in Challenge Bathurst up in New South Wales right now. Proudly brought to you and sponsored by Chris Ritchie's throw rug over his chair in his home studio up above there, like that. I think that's what that is. That the red poppy one?
That is a red poppy one. Yes,
that is absolutely true. That's great tribute. Well done. Good setting.
Yes, well, of course, Richard up at Challenge Bathurst, and I saw some photos from up there, and there's some very very fast cars. Number of the cars that we would normally see at the Bathurst 12 hours were up there. Now late on Sunday when we were there, Doc wasn't there on the Sunday, but in the paddock on Sunday, and I don't know whether Dave saw this at all or knew the reason why. When I came back drove back from around Dandenong Road and drove back into the paddock. As I drove into the paddock, there was a nice, shiny, brand new GT3 Bentley sitting on a trailer in the paddock. I don't know why it was there, but it was there, and I sort of stopped and had a look. By the time I got back, it was gone. But I don't know what.
I was going to say, where's your proof?
So it might have. They might have been putting in an appearance before they went up to Bathurst, because there's lots of GT3 cars up there, and a lot of people having fun.
I would suggest that's probably the Mark 1 Bentley Continental GT3 that's owned and operated by Mike Bailey. I believe it was towed up on an open trailer by Jordan Roddy.
That would make sense, yes, because it was just in front of Mike's.
Yeah. So that's. I don't know the history of that car. I probably should have asked Mike when I had a video call with him last night. But that's interestingly. There's a couple of Bentleys now reappearing.
Yes.
The Medikis, based out of Port Macquarie, have obtained the former Peter Edwards Maranello Motorsport entry that was run by. Now this is just my memory. John Bow, David Brabham, and Peter Edwards in 2015 Bathurst 12 Hour, maybe. Yes.
Yeah, sounds
Someone
about
please
right.
check the history books. Andrew and George, yes. And of course, Rusty French has a Mark 1 GT3 Bentley as well.
Oh, does he? Where's he got that hidden away in Melbourne?
Yeah.
Rusty
Probably
has
in
many
amongst
things
his
hidden away.
myriad of cars, and of course it's in the gorgeous, Sky Sands black and gold livery, like pretty much everything in the Rusty French stable.
Yes, thank you.
It doesn't photograph very well, but it looks magnificent up close. So
nice
anything
looking,
Thomas
nice
Randall
looking
related to with his Trans Am. Just quickly too, you just reminded me of remind myself through talking to you, Stilly. Thank you. For everyone's benefit, if you're listening to us on our podcast right now, watching us on YouTube, or watching even the replay, the Fox Museum in Melbourne reopened last weekend. So Lindsay has opened his museum up for viewing again, so people can go along and see the cars. So.
We must go. They keep saying, the people who run it keep saying you must come and do a story on the Fox Museum, and we've never actually got around there. So many things that you do.
It's in our backyard. Also, and we haven't been there.
Yeah. Also coming up
in the
down
Melbourne.
Docklands.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's got quite the collection there. Also, more racing happening the weekend. Phillip Island this weekend. The Supercars are in action down there on the weekend as part of the Pyack Spence. Now, once again, no spectators are allowed, and we were going to go down there. I have tried to contact Pyack to see about going down and doing some filming. Unfortunately, at this late stage, we haven't had a response. I've sent a couple of emails, but nobody's got back to me at this stage. So I'm not sure whether we'll be able to get down there or not and film down there. If we do, you'll see some of that possibly on next week's edition of In Pit Lane, which incidentally will be the last for this particular season. At this stage, this particular event, Full Course Yellow, at least my plan, I don't know what you guys are planning to do for the rest of the year, but I was hoping to sort of, we would keep this going at least until the Formula One season is dead and buried. And then we'll take a decent break. But so probably when In Pit Lane finishes at 9:00 next week on Channel 31, we'll move this to the earlier time of 9:00, so we can get to bed nice and early for a change. Also, racing, as Paul's pointing out, racing at Winton this weekend with under 2 litre sports sedans and the Pulsars. Thunder Sports TA2 Formula Ford and the David Lowe Memorial XL Enduro Cup. 90 minutes. Some really interesting drivers in that XL Cup. There's a lot of people, including our mates Stephen and Clay Richards, father and son, but not driving together. Ben and Jason Bargwana are driving together, but Clay Richards and Stephen Richards are driving in different cars.
That's tentative at the moment. I've been watching the day-by-day updates on that Toyota 86, and it's touch and go on whether they'll get it together in time.
Yeah, no, this isn't the Toyota. This is an XL.
This is the XL.
Oh, sorry, the XL. Okay.
Now, here's one for the panel. The last time a Richards father and son raced in an endurance format in front-wheel drive cars, memory serves it was 1998 at Bathurst, and they finished P1 and P2.
P2, yes.
In a Volvo S40 and a Nissan Primera.
The Nissan, which were both two of the best. Those Super Tourers were beautifully constructed cars. That Primera was just gorgeously constructed. Kiesel had that. I think he still got it actually, and it's a gorgeous car. The Volvo was lovely too. They were two fabulous cars. I really liked Super Touring. It never really took off to the extent that it should have. I mean, but if you have the opportunity to have a look at those cars, it'd be great to see more of them. They're very popular in historic racing in England at the moment, so it'd be fantastic to see a few of them pop up
and in New Zealand.
Historic racing here. And see, this is what I love about historic racing in New Zealand is that they're very liberal in terms of when once it gets too old to sort of racing contemporary racing, it's about 12 years or something. It's a very short period of time. They say right now and it just rolls over every year. So it's like okay, now that car's 12 years old, that can race. That car's 12 years old, that can race. And they put them all together, and they have big fields. Great meetings. The meetings I've been to over there have been fantastic. If you get the opportunity in January, in particular, Hampton Downs and Taupo, you'll see the Formula 5000s there. Great meetings. If you can, if the borders are open and we can get back again, I'd highly recommend going over and seeing those meetings. They are fantastic.
Speaking of going over and seeing meetings,
I was going to say the latest the 19. If you consider that in 1992, a 1972 vintage Group N C car was 20 years old. In 2021, the same vintage of historic racing would put us at about 2001, which is sort of the pinnacle, like the tip of running out of super touring, and also the end of the original 5-litre era of Group A touring cars in Australia. The V8 supercars, so to speak. Those are now the equivalent of historic cars.
Yeah, and they both should be in historic. Both should be in historic racing, and I think and also some of the later Formula Holdens that aren't, because they're carbon fibre. There's people that are saying, "Oh no, you can't drive those cars. They're not eligible for Group R because they're carbon fibre tubs." And they were contemporary cars in the day, and they should be. I know a couple of people who have got them and have said, we would love to bring them out. Can't bring them out and race them because the historic guys don't really want us. Same with the sports sedans. I mean, the sports sedans, there's quite a few historic sports sedans, and because they're so, it's so hard to classify them because they are like Grandpa's axe. I mean, that Mini that we looked at, Adrian Reed's Mini, that the doctor that you spoke to, Adrian, about, there's no way that, strictly speaking, that is an historic car, but it's sort of the time, and it looked fantastic, and it'd be great to see more of those old sports sedans, the old Minis, and some of the old cars from that era getting around would be fabulous to see again. That's why Malala was so good. The big field of sports sedans, and they were very liberal in terms of letting in cars. Like the Peter Brock replica, the A40. Replica car. They said, yes, okay, it is a replica, but the original is gone. We're going to let it run. And I think that as long as we know it's a replica,
And if you're not racing for sheep stations, let them in and give what the public want, and let them watch the cars parade around. Doesn't in whatever format they.
That's if you speak to the stakeholders in historic motorsport, Doc, depending upon where you sit on the spectrum, that is either absolutely the right thing, or to some people, it's a slippery slope towards anarchy and the destruction of historic motorsport as we know it. So just as in the professional motorsport paddock, in the historic motorsport community, there is a wide spectrum of views and philosophies over what is and is not appropriate. Like I said, I'm not casting aspersions on the whole entirety of the community, but there are some who have attitudes that are very different than what you are proposing. And the historic community is one that, whenever there is a move to a new group or a new recognition, it's not often without consequences. So,
and I'll just add one more to it, and I'm not sitting on the fence here. Idealism, we need both, because therefore, if you didn't have some reform and didn't have or open slather, it'd be crazy stuff. See, I think you need both. You need both perspectives to keep some sort of conformity to it.
It's a very hard thing to do. I mean, I know because the Historic Commission in Australia is so desperately strict. That's one of the reasons why Australian cars are in such high demand overseas. Because I've spoken to people overseas who have come out to Phillip Island, and also when I've been lucky enough to be at a couple of meetings overseas in both New Zealand and in France, where people said, look, Australian cars are very, very highly prized because we know we're getting the real thing, and we know we're getting it in the condition and the style that it raced, because they are so strict over there. What we're getting is a genuine article. Yeah, because they are very strict about it. But and where you get the problem was, and this is one of the things that sort of left me in two minds when we did go to New Zealand for the opening of Hampton Downs. Hampton Park is where I live. Hampton Downs. We looked at a couple of cars, and I think I told the story about Jim Richards' Hillman Imp, and got very excited and did a story on Jim, or so we thought, Jim Richards' Hillman Imp, and it was like, oh no, this isn't the real article, this is a replica. And then we went, and in the end we were having to go to people and say, now, this is the X in month Zephyr, is it? No, okay. What about the Robbie Frankovic? The Frankovic car is? Oh, fantastic. Okay, we'll do a story on that. You didn't know what was real and what was real. So I think they've got to be very, very clear that if it is a tribute car or a replica, it's got to be very, instantly identified. They've got to put, and I think in Germany, if it is a replica car, it's got to be identified. There's a particular colour windscreen sticker, and it's got a big R next to the number to say that no, this isn't the real thing. As Tenacious D was said, this is not the greatest song in the world. This is just a tribute. But you want to see them. Yeah.
Great segue. I better jump on two wheels for a second, which I haven't done enough lately, but now the world is open. We can. There's a few big
Marquez is out.
Yes, Marquez, and just quickly on that, thank you for the lead in there, Stilly. The big on the thing is he was out with concussion for the last race, but no one's trusting. Yeah. Cough into your drink, because no one's trusting the press release on Marquez being out for the last race due to concussion, because the same people that did the press release and the doctors were the ones that said he had out when he slipped on the shower, and he ended up out for 10 years he's been out. No, only joking, only basically a year and a half. So we hope it's only concussion, but everyone's just making a bit of fun of the story. Just briefly, I didn't mention it last week, the previous at Italy, the last race, not the one we had on the weekend. If you want to see something amazing that's simple in life but easy to do, and if you're aeronautically an engineer, when they did a tribute for Valentino Rossi, check out the planes that they threw over the top of Italy for him and the colours that they threw out the back of the jets. It looked amazing when they were in formation. Have a quick look at that, YouTube that. that's something to thank Stilly and Stuart nodding in agreement. So that's something to behold. They are great. I thought that was a simple but effective. Those planes were sensational. So going back to last week, quickly, Miller, a great effort. Congratulations, good stuff. He seemed to find some form towards the end of the race and get some longevity out of his tyres. Got a third place, and he's happy. So that gives the Constructors' Championship to Ducati for the year before it's wrapped up, with only one more race to go. So well done, Ducati. They've wrapped that up, and they can all go and celebrate and drink lots of vino. Anyway, Remy Gardner, huge, massive, great stuff, brilliant. Remy Gardner has got the Moto 2 Championship put to bed as well too. We all know that he'll be riding for KTM next year in the MotoGP prototype category, the premium brand. So good luck to Remy, and enjoy the rest of the season that you have short-lived. And then hopefully he comes back home and Wayne brings him back, and they have a great summer in Australia with the world open up, and they can chill and before they get back to the rigmarole next to it. The Valentino Rossi will have a big last race. It is Valencia coming up. They've only one more round of MotoGP left. So, yep, get on board, have a look at that, tape it, IQ it, whatever you may be. So the season's pretty much finished. Quartararo has won the championship in the MotoGP, but it's going to be a great send-off, I hope, and a great celebration throughout the paddock for all the categories, MotoGP, Moto 2 and Moto 3. Speaking of Mr. Quartararo, he couldn't find any form in the last race. It doesn't matter anyway, but unusually dropped it, lost it on one of the corners towards the end of the race. So it's just going to be mountain of a molehill on that one. Storming a teacup as well too. I don't think there's much of it. He'll ride around towards. The last race was red flagged at Portimao, so that was a little bit of a concerning incident between Oliveira and Leclerc. They went into the wall. It was only about 2 or 3 laps to go anyway. They both walked away to a certain extent after getting treated medically, and will roll on. So that's a big wrap-up for MotoGP for the year. It's been a great year. Joan Mir found a bit of form and got second on the podium as well too, and congratulations to Bagnaia. So I think he's got 4 wins for them now, and he's absolutely on fire when it comes to qualifying. Jack Miller's basically got him for all of Q1, and at the last lap, usually when they're putting their best tyre down, Bagnaia has just pipped him to the post sometimes by only like 100th of a second or something crazy. So.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Yes, MotoGP. So when's the next round? We've got a round in Valencia coming up.
Valencia, I think it's in 2 weeks' time.
In a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah,
Valencia, yes.
Everyone's looking forward to just letting their hair down and taking the helmet off, putting it on and taking their helmet off for one last time and having some fun, I hope.
They'll be having a break for Christmas, but of course, here locally, I mean, we're going to have hopefully a good season of speedway and drag racing over the summer.
Yes,
we're hoping that the revised SRA series has been released, kicking off at Mount Gambier on November 27th, as Russell is pointing out there. So let's hope for a big season, and let's hope that locally the guys from my heart goes out to the guys at Nyora who had just the worst season possible last year with all the things. Every time they tried to have a damn meeting, it was cancelled, and I know that their calendar is coming back. And as we've said before, I mean, we would love to. Whether it's speedway, drag racing, karting, hill climb, anything like that. If you're interested in having any of that live streamed and having us attend over the summer, we'd love to come out and do some of those. Do some of those events for you over the summer. So get in contact with us here at In Pit Lane. At the show at In Pit Lane. That's the
let me loose in the pits of Nyora with the live stream style we did at Sandown on the weekend. Look out! Would be how great. Put Stuart up there in the director's chair, up in the main missionary position, up on top of the speedway box there. Well, thanks. Yeah, and with that get up. With that, well, look at that! With that formality and that format, with screens absolutely coming out of his proverbial, and let him loose. Put him up there, And Brett and I run amok down those pits, because I tell you what, it's muddy down there. It's fun. There's all sorts of action going on down at Nyora in those pits, and they're not afraid to. As long as I put a high vis on, I can basically get under a car and hijack it on the way out into the circuit.
Well, we'll hopefully do that. Avalon looking good for Boxing Day. Yes, they've decided to sort of hold off until Boxing Day, which I think has been a sensible thing, because I think people have jumped in very quickly. Speaking of karts, since I mentioned karting before, great to see the work that started at Oakley Kart Club. The major renovations there, they're getting right stuck into that. The track is being widened, it is being lengthened. That's through the Victorian Government's Motorsport Development Fund, and there's big.
All of us need photos for that next week, Brett. I think you're closest. You can drive past and get some shots. Show the.
I could possibly do that. I'm there. I'm just down the road, and could possibly pop over if there's anybody who could possibly let me in during the week.
Drop past my work, and I'll shout you a carton of chocolate milk for your way, and off you go with your little paper bag and your sandwich, and off you go.
That's
and take
all
some
I
pictures.
need. And then there's also Rob Roy has also been there, and the Rob Roy revival happening next year. And once again, because of the same government scheme, Rob Roy, the famous Rob Roy hill climb, is also being lengthened. There's going to be 3 extra corners over at Rob Roy as well. So that's fantastic news.
Blow me up, and I'll do fashion model for a second.
There we are. So there you can see the 12th and 13th of November 2022, the Victorian Historic and the MG Car Club Rob Roy revival. They're going to try and make it a bit like sort of a Goodwood Festival of Speed thing. So they're expecting everybody to dress up and get into
10 Elfin cars.
Yeah, the celebration of Elfin, and it'll be fantastic. So that's it's a long time away. You've got a whole year to plan for it. So if you're thinking of dressing up and getting into the gear of the day, the 1950s and 60s gear, then apparently, according to the flyer, it's an event not to be missed. So
there you go. Maximum 100 cars invited. Mm-hmm. All cars must be pre-1980. Cars must be on site Friday, Saturday. There you go. Garaging provided for 40 of the probably cars, I suppose. First in, best dressed as usual. And there's the details with Grant Campbell, Richard Williams, and some sponsorship and inquiries as well for the event.
Our mate off the bottom of that, where it says Rod Cooper. Rod, if you want to call in pit lane, we can do the live streaming for the event for you.
And advertising Reese Timms, who of course a former crew member of In Pit Lane as well. So Reese, yes, get in touch. We would. Well, the only problem there, Stuart, is amongst all of the things that they will have to do at Rob Roy, they will have to provide some sort of mobile coverage, because if you remember, we were going to cover Rob Roy a little bit about this time last year, and simply could not get a signal out anywhere near the joint. No, not even with that. There is no. It is a mobile black spot. If you have a look at the coverage map, there is a great big hole in the coverage, and right in the middle is Rob Roy. There is no signal at all.
There'll have to be some sort of signal, otherwise they'd have to put on the flyer only cash purchases only, because what it says here is not only does it going to have fashion shows, singers, dancers, it'll have market stalls and a food court. If you're going to have a food court, market stalls, a lot of them rely on their Wi-Fi devices on their counters to be able to facilitate payment for the goods that are incurred.
Cash only.
Otherwise,
it's a proper historic event. Cash only. Pre-1980s. No credit cards.
Bring your pre-decimal pennies and coin.
Yeah, I think so.
Checks by prior arrangement with management only.
Roy, virtual Roy, yes, a spectator viewing for Rob Roy. If you've got to climb, it is a hell of a climb up there. But yes, there are some really good spots to get footage at Rob Roy. So it's a really nice place, because you are in that sort of area. There's lots of food that you can get on the way. Stuart's brought up the details.
There you go. Just on those details, it says completely new hot mix surface. Return road has now is going to be sealed or is sealed.
Thank God.
and separate return crossing over the causeway.
Once
So
again, yeah.
we're talking about
really,
huge
really
upgrades
much needed work done at Rob
to
Roy. Really,
eliminate.
they've done a great job to sort of to bring it
And
up to spec. But they've never had the money to do it. Now, thanks to this Victorian government scheme, and it's the first time, as we said, that motorsport has got this. There is this little bundle of money that they've said, okay, that. Motorsport. They've acknowledged that motorsport has got a really bad run over the years in terms of government grants for sports at the grassroots level, and that's why Oakley is happening. That's why Rob Roy is happening, and there are opportunities. If you go to the website, Motorsport Australia will have the details. If you're a club, and there are club rooms being built. There's all sorts of things happening. So if you've got an event or a venue, contact them and find out if you might be eligible to get hold of
Could
some
have
of that
been a New
lovely
South
money.
Wales Raffle Club.
Track lengthen, 3 new corners as well. There you go.
That's it. Okay, I think that's all the time we've got. Everybody, we've got to get out because I've got to be up very, very early in the morning. Unfortunately, heading off to a funeral out in the bush, so I've got to. Yes, it's going to be very, very, very early morning. So thank you everybody for joining us again. As we said, next week on the program. Now, not sure about what we're going to have on next year. I had some plans for next week, and then that's all been sort of thrown in the air this afternoon because I won't say who, but one of the supercar drivers has contacted me and said, "Hey, happy to come on and after wrap up the weekend if you like, if we can talk about Bathurst and next year and all sorts of things."
Excellent.
So we'll see if that actually happens next year. Otherwise, it'll probably just be us for the last show on Channel 31 for season
not Davey Reynolds, because he's got
2021.
not Davey Reynolds because he's got some spare time on his hands and he's not racing.
There we go. Now we've got. There we go. Love to see us out at the Eastern. Sherry's saying, love to see us out at the Eastern Creek line in Seymour or back at Junior Top Gun. Yeah, we did. We covered Top Gun, as you know, like a couple of years ago. Myself and Shane Priest and Sarah Tarr were out there, and we covered it with. It was only a 3-camera coverage, but we covered it. That's going to be one of the things we might need it on the extended track. Might need another camera, but
Brett says the last part of the comment is it was fantastic because when we commentated the finals for him as well too.
Yep, that's it. We did the commentary there, so we would like to do that again. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us once again. Remember to keep, if you haven't done so yet, like and subscribe the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Very important. Also the Facebook page. Once again, a very big thank you to Virtual R, to Roy Ellery, and his company who have got behind. You might have seen some Facebook ads there. Roy has put them together, and it's had a really big effect. Roy, I was going to get in touch because I had a look at some figures today, and it's done really well. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. And as we said, we would love to over the summer. We're going to take a bit of a break, but if there's any opportunity to get out and about and film some stuff and to bring it to you, whether it's on Channel 31 or here online, we would love to do that. We'd love to do that for you. So join us next week for another edition of Full Course Yellow, straight after In Pit Lane. In Pit Lane, 9 o'clock on Channel 31. That's digital Channel 44 on your free-to-air television right across Melbourne and Geelong. Until then, from all of us here at Full Course Yellow and In Pit Lane, thanks for joining us and bye for now.
Have a great week.
Those